Hi, I'm Chris Cooper. Welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Thanks for joining us. If you've thought about becoming a master gardener but weren't quite sure how to go about it, stay tuned because today we're going to tell you how to get started. And Carol Reese is here to give us some options for shade-tolerant plants you might want to consider for your landscape. All that and more is coming up next on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. So stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today are Melissa Taylor. Melissa is a master gardener right here in Shelby County. Sandra Montague, who's a master gardener in Fayette County, and Carol Reese is with us. He's a horticulture specialist with the University of Tennessee Extension. Thanks for joining me, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
The guys are going to be jealous when they see this set. All right, let's talk about the Master Gardener program. Before we get started, Melissa, you're the vice president of the Memphis Area Master Gardener Association. Miss Sandra is the president of the Fayette County Master Gardener Association. Okay, make sure we get that information out there. Okay, now, what does a master gardener do? What does it mean to be a master gardener? We'll start with you, Melissa.
The official definition of the Master Gardener program is the Master Gardener program is offered by the University of Tennessee Extension. And the purpose of the program is to train citizens as hort-educated volunteers of the University of Tennessee Extension as well as the Tennessee State Cooperative Extension Program. And our volunteers work in partnership with their counties to expand the educational outreach by providing home gardeners with research-based information. That sounds very serious, but we have a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
But that's the official definition of what we are.
So what does a master gardener do, Ms. Sandra?
Well, we provide volunteer work throughout the county, and some of the things that we do are we help with the Fayette County plant sale, Fayette Cares plant sale, and we do the homegrown section. All of the proceeds from the things that we do, we divide our plants in the spring and then pot some up and take up there, and all those proceeds go to that charity. We help out with the 4-H. Most of the volunteer work for 4-H comes from master gardeners. So we also take care of the flower beds around the courthouse square. So we just anything that volunteers. We also help people like older folks that loved gardening and can't do it anymore. We help with some of the labor on that. So
sounds like I do quite a bit.
We do.
Now let's talk about the applications. So I understand applications are available here in Shelby County. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. For the Shelby County program, it's available on the Memphis Area Master Gardener website, and that's actually memphisareamastergardener.com. And the applications are available right now, but they are due at the end of this month, July 31st. And part of the program will start the second week of January and run through about the middle of April. And the classes here in Shelby County, I know they're different from Fayette County, but in Shelby County, there's one class a week, which is on Wednesday mornings from 9:30 to 12:30 at the Agri Center. And you initially will be trained 40 hours classroom teaching as well as 40 hours of hands-on experience in the field. And then after that, we hope that you will continue on as a volunteer in Shelby County or Fayette County. All the counties need help.
Well, since we mentioned Fayette County, what about the applications there?
Well, the applications, you can get them at the Extension office or on our website, which is extension.tennessee.edu/Fayette. And those you can turn them in. Our classes start August 22nd. It's a Friday, or they're on Fridays this year. So you can turn the applications in anytime up until that time. We are limited to 20 people, so as soon as the class is full, then applications cease. So
now let's talk about costs. How much is it in Fayette County?
In Fayette County, it's $120, and that includes the textbook, which is produced by UT Extension. It's a great textbook.
Okay, and Shelby County?
Shelby County, it's $150. Also includes the textbook as well.
Okay. Now let's talk about the classes. What are some of the classes that are offered?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. It's a really nice wide variety. You don't get too in depth on any one topic, but you go over different things from like preserving water, plant entomology. There's Carol Reese is actually one of our speakers who comes and
she looks over.
Speaks.
Wait.
There's a nice wide variety that you cover with the different topics and everything. What do y'all have? In your
Well, we
same
do.
thing?
You do weeds and turf,
I do.
turf grasses
Enjoy
for
that.
us, and Carol does woody trees and shrubs and landscape design. We also have just some basic botany. That's one of the first classes that we do, and then just soil. It's amazing that people don't realize that dirt and soil are two different things. So we have quite a few. Plant diseases, propagation, irrigation. Lots of things.
So we're just introducing you to the horticultural world, is what I like to say.
Correct.
Don't you enjoy teaching those classes?
I
Miss
love
Carol?
teaching them. There's nothing like teaching a bunch of people who really came there to learn,
Yeah.
are enthusiastic. Did you say what time of day the Friday classes would be?
I believe ours is at 6. They usually start at 6. Now, I have to check on that to make sure, but you will find out if you call the extension office. They'll have all that information. But that's the normal. Is that what Tanya asked you for?
It's usually in the evening time.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, so 6 o'clock sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about some projects. What are some of the projects the Master Gardeners are doing in Shelby County?
In Shelby County, we have a ton of projects,
Good.
something for everyone, in fact. We've got several community gardens.
Okay.
We have Planter Road Davies, Planter Road Collierville Victory Garden. We also volunteer at the Lichterman Nature Center, the Memphis Botanic Garden, the Dixon Garden and Galleries, the Memphis Zoo. We also work with Habitat for Humanity and Plants for Habitat. So there's something for everyone, that you can do. We also have a Hortline that you can call in here, and you can help support that and answer your neighbors' questions that they call in and wanting to know what's this insect or what's this spot on my leaf out there. Should I be worried?
I'm going to tell my mom here for a second. When I first started this job as an extension agent, she should always tell me, what, people call there with gardening questions? I'm sure they do, Mom. Don't you want to call us? Yeah. So yeah, people actually do call with gardening questions.
You'd be amazed.
You'd really be amazed. Here in Shelby County, the hotline is available from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and we get a lot of calls. So what about Fayette County? What about some of your
I
projects?
gave you some of the projects earlier. I'm sorry, but actually, we Tanya, our horticulturist at the extension agent, she likes for us to answer those questions because she said every question that you guys answer is one that I don't have to answer because they get a lot of calls. But we judge the 4-H projects and. We have one of our master gardeners leads the after-school gardening club for kids, and so we're just involved in everything. And anything that anybody has a question about, they can call one of us, and we'll help them out.
Okay, and usually the age ranges are pretty much from 18 and older. Okay, and we actually had somebody in that class this past year who was 18.
Did you really?
Yeah, we sure did,
Wow.
and she's actually going to graduate, so we're looking forward to that.
Excellent.
But look, so where can you get these applications?
Okay, so you can pick them up at the extension office, which is located over at the Agri Center, or you can go online, memphisareamastergardener.org.
.org. All right. How about it one more time?
Same thing for us, and also I wanted to say that don't be intimidated by that that application because I was like, oh, I'm not this good. But we want master gardeners, but we also want to make you master gardeners. If you just have an interest in gardening, that's what we're really looking for.
And supporting your community.
Yeah, and supporting the community.
I'm always impressed with how many people come from different backgrounds.
Yes, yes, I
Y'all
am
always
too.
do a little round table and talk to everybody in the class and find out who they are and where they come and their level of expertise. And it is all levels and all different walks of
All
life, and
different
I
walks
love
of life.
that.
Yeah, judges, doctors, lawyers, teachers. I mean, we pretty much have it all. CEOs. I mean, we have it all.
Exactly.
So it is impressive when they, go around the room and just kind of introduce themselves. So I always look forward to that. And in the short time we have left, what attracted you to the Master Gardener program?
Honestly, I've always loved to garden, and I just wanted to, I love to garden and I love to volunteer, and I just wanted to learn more. And I know it says Master Gardener, but I'm learning something new every day, and I love that every time I volunteer.
Same thing. My mother was into flowers. My father did the vegetables, so I kind of had both sides of it, and I loved it. I'm not very good, but I still, I keep learning and keep trying, and And also, that's my sister actually said, you really need to do this, and so she pushed me into it, and I've been happy doing it. And we have our meetings. I will say that on our meetings, we have a lot of fun. It's kind of a social time during our meetings. So we have food, and we have a presenter. Sometimes we get you and to do topics, and then we have our business meeting and plan our other volunteer work.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
Sandra, definitely appreciate that. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Ms. Carroll, shade-tolerant plants. But before we get started with your recommendations, I understand now there's some shade-tolerant plants that we don't recommend anymore.
True, very
Okay,
true.
how about that?
I think, we'll still find those things sometimes when we get online, and
Yeah.
we might want to reconsider some of these old recommendations that have turned out to be troublesome in the long run.
Yeah.
It used to be people would say, well, grass didn't want to grow in the shade, so let's
Yeah.
plant some English ivy in there. Let's plant some Vinca minor or Vinca major. And it turned out over the years those became too aggressive. And also it sort of precludes you planting anything else. I wouldn't say never use it, but
Okay.
if I plant, say, Vinca minor in there with hosta and fern, eventually it crowds them out.
Right.
So I really prefer a diverse planting. And also it used to be that we thought shade plant selections were rather limited, and now there's enormous selections of shade plants at the garden center. So it's fun. It's a new fun place to garden with a whole different set of textures and colors.
Okay, so those plants are aggressive. is the deal.
Aggressive. I
Okay.
bet right now people listening to this are battling, the old bishopsweed or goutweed is one that's also considered to be aggressive. The chameleon plant, which isn't that old, it came out a few years ago, but that little sucker will run on you. And then when you try to pull it out, it smells. You ever had to pull that up? It smells like fish. It feels like you're cleaning a bass. I feel like I want to put on some kind of face mask if I'm pulling that up. So ones that we would recommend, I like plants that kind of stay in discrete clumps. They may get bigger over time, but they don't necessarily run and take over a large area. I mean, unless you just never want to mow that area again and you're not trying to garden there. But there's so many selections of hosta and fern that I would suggest you join one of those societies. There's a big hosta society here in Memphis. There's a great fern society, and you'll learn a whole lot more. And also people tend to share. There'll be sales, so you can start to get those selections that you really see doing well in this area.
Do you have any favorite hostas?
I do. I
ferns
love
that are good?
guacamole.
Okay.
Guacamole to me is a great color. It's a brilliant green, and it always looks happy all summer, whereas some hostas kind of start looking tattered and sad late in the summer, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And of course, of the ferns, I think I really love, as far as an evergreen fern, that tassel fern is one of my favorites.
Okay.
And the holly fern is very good, especially here in the Memphis area.
Okay.
But some new plants, and I like to think about shrubbery a lot of times instead of just the evergreen perennials, which are so popular, would be, of course, we know hydrangeas. Again, there's a whole hydrangea society.
Yes.
But let's talk about this distilleums. That's a relatively new introduction that's come in from some of Mike Durr's breeding programs down in Georgia. And they're evergreen. They're related to witch hazel, so they have sort of an interesting spring bloom, but they're really grown for the evergreen foliage. Shiny, pretty, evergreen, and you can find 3 forms in the market. One's more spreading, one's more haystack, and one's more upright. Okay. And you'll find those even at the big box stores. They're not that hard to find. And Distillium is the name, I'm sorry.
It's the name?
Everybody will give me the real name. Well, that is the real name.
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
have a common name, so Distillium's not that hard. It's just 4 syllables. So another plant I really want to mention are gingers. A lot of the Chinese ginger especially has gotten real popular the last few years. It's a beautiful, shiny, heart-shaped leaf. You can also find native gingers that do well, and Callaway is especially nice brand. But when I say ginger, a lot of people think about the edible ginger in the grocery store, which is actually zingiber. And it can be grown, and it can tolerate shade. And you can actually just buy the ones at the grocery store and grow those. They're tropical. So you would have to pot it up for the winter or just replant it again next spring. But you could grow your own gingers. And then y'all know a third ginger, right? The old ginger lily, the hedychiums, which is, it's so confusing. Thank goodness for scientific names. We love those scientific names. The hedychiums, old pass-along plant we find in the South is the moth ginger or butterfly ginger, which is white blooming. Looks sort of like a canna leaf, but a little finer textured. And it smells like gardenia. It's absolutely fantastic fragrance. There are more ornamental gingers in the trade now that come in different colors. We've got reds and peaches and yellows. And some are borderline perennial, but here in the Memphis area, you probably have good luck with them. A really good source, if you're interested in collecting some of those, would be the Plant Delights catalog, if you want to order some. And there may be some local nurseries here that are carrying more of a range too, but they're really fantastic plants.
Okay.
So.
Any other that we need to know of?
Well, I think so. We keep talking about the Solomon seal, which
Yeah.
we've got both native forms, and then the variegated form is my favorite, and it's not a native form of Solomon seal, and it's a beautiful arching stem, and it looks like somebody has just painted the edges of the leaf very gracefully. Little white flowers in the spring that dangle, and you'll buy a pot that just has 2 or 3 little arching stems, but eventually it'll form a pretty nice colony, but not too aggressive. Very easily grown and gives a nice little bright addition to the shade garden. In fact, it was plant of the month. If you ever go to the UT Garden archives and look up our plant of the month, Jason Reeves wrote it up as plant of the month this spring, so you can read all about it and decide if you want it for your garden and see some really good pictures of it as well.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. We're talking deep shade. I mean, how much shade are we talking for these plant materials?
Right, that's always a good question because very few plants really like deep, dark shade.
Okay.
It's good to get a few hours of sunlight on most any plant for best performance. And a lot of times it's not that hard to achieve. Maybe if you'll do just a little bit of judicious pruning, for example, maybe limb those trees up a little higher so that the early light can get in there and the late light in the afternoon.
Okay.
Or even a little bit of thinning of the branches. You and I know, never,
Right.
never top.
Yeah, never
But
top.
removing a few branches here and there can actually let that dappled light in there. And hydrangeas, for example, are a good plant that it will not flower as well in deep shade. But if you let it get a little bit of light, a few hours of light, then it'll be a much better bloomer and performer.
Okay. Is it best to get that light in the morning or later in the afternoon?
That's another very good point. Morning light is very different than hot afternoon light. Morning light a lot of times is great, like the eucheras or the coral bells that have become so popular in the last few years. I found if they get too much shade, a lot of times they lose that rich color. But if I put them where they get that morning light and then are shaded during the hot hours of the afternoon, then they tend to retain that good rich color and they tend to bloom a little better. And often the blooms on them are quite attractive, even though we mostly grow them now for the foliage. You've probably seen now there's a lot of the tiarellas as well as the hybrids, the eucarellas are a cross between euchera and tiarella. And those are nice because they kind of have that euchera habit, but they also tend to spread a little bit and form a little bit more of a ground cover. So look for those as well. There's a big selection available these days.
All right, there you have it. Your shade-tolerant plants from Ms. Carol Reese herself. How about that? All right, here's our Q&A session.
All right.
Y'all jump in there with us, ladies.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Oh, Lord, she says. All right. Here's the first question. My ornamental cherry tree leaves have little holes in them. Should I be concerned, Ms. Carol? What do you think?
If you really were worried about the cosmetic effect, you could start spraying for them earlier in the year before you ever saw the damage. But is it going to kill your tree? Nah.
It's not going to kill the tree. They can
No.
actually deal with that long term. It's okay.
It's a little fungus.
It's a fungus. Yeah.
And of course the fungus lands on, the little spore begins to grow, and then that desiccated part of the foliage drops out.
Right. Hence the appearance shot hole.
Shot hole.
Right.
And it's real common on prunus, all prunus, even evergreen forms like cherry laurel.
Yeah.
I always love to quote Plato Tuleatus on this. You know, he says, just don't look at them too closely.
And you just get over it, right? You get over it.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's not a big deal. And if you're going to use a fungicide, you're going to have to use that at bud break. See, it's too late now.
Right.
You know, so what you need to do, pick those leaves up that are on the ground because they do arbor those spores. So get rid of those. Practice good sanitation. And then as far as cultural control goes, just make sure those leaves are able to dry out in between wet periods. Because you have this shot hole fungus, or it could be a disease, anytime you have wet weather. And
We've had
y'all know
a bit of
we've
that.
had wet weather.
Yes, we have.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we've
have.
had plenty of that. So it's not going to be a problem. All right, here's our next question. I have black spots on the leaves of my black-eyed Susans. What can I use to treat those plants?
You ladies want to?
You're the expert.
I don't have black eyes.
I'm going to always defer to you.
Well, again, it's probably a
Yeah.
fungal disease. There are a couple other things it could be. There's a couple of little insects that can feed underneath that suck a little bit of chlorophyll out that might leave black specks. But honestly, again, no need for it, really. It's going to clear up once the weather clears up, as you pointed out. And it's not going to kill the plants. We really don't have to worry about anything particularly killing black-eyed Susans, except maybe too wet a site would be the only thing,
Yeah.
soggy feet.
And that'll pretty much be it. I mean, if you want to use a fungicide, you could. There's some out there. I'm always about cultural controls first.
Yes.
You know, if those plants are crowded, that's a problem. You know, the air can't get in there to dry those leaves off. Are you mulching? You know, it's pretty good to mulch those areas to make sure that those splashes don't come up and hit those bottom leaves, okay? And then practice good sanitation. I mean, if you have diseased leaves down there, just pick them up.
Yep.
That's a really good tip.
Just pick them up, throw them away. Or as Mr. D would say, double bag them and throw them away. You know, so.
He's always preaching sanitation. I bet he's a neat freak.
You think?
See my garden, you'd be like, how does he say that and doesn't practice it? Well, yeah, I always practice good sanitation.
Good.
But again, there are fungicides out there. That's the last resort for me. Chlorothianil, which is Daconil, you can use. Or if you want to be safer, there's a copper fungicide that you can use. Sulfur fungicides that you can use. Read the labels on those.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Okay. Here's our next question. Can 7 be used on tomato plants to kill bugs? What do you think? But here's my question to that one. So what bugs are we talking about?
Exactly.
Because the major pests of tomato plants are pretty much tomato hornworm, aphids, and maybe cutworms.
And your squirrels when they eat your tomatoes.
And the squirrels when they eat your tomatoes. How about that? Which is true. So can you use 7?
Well, you know, 7's not going to help with those particular
not gonna help.
insects. And I hate to see 7 used, as you know.
I know.
In
And
the
explain
garden.
why.
It's just one of the worst things you can do for your bees. And our bees are so, you know, the population actually of all our pollinators is so far down there. And I feel like anything we can do to protect our pollinators, and we can use these more targeted pesticides like the BT products for the hornworm, although the hornworms usually like only 1 or 2. Amazing. It just happened on my cherry tomatoes. They were beautiful one day, and they say they were just defoliated. One big hornworm. One. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I just pull that sucker off, and I go put him over on the bird feeding tray that I have. Hope some creature gets a delicious treat. But very far from my tomato plants, he's
Right.
not going to make it back.
I saw a bird trying to get one day and just wondered, man, the bird was struggling with it. It was so big. But here again, yeah, not the 7. BT for your tomato hornworms. If you have aphids, look, insecticidal soap, nice heavy stream of water just to knock them off. Cutworms, you can use Carbaryl for cutworms. But they're not a major problem. Most the old timers put the aluminum foil,
Yes.
you know, around the stems of the tomato plant for the cutworms, and they can't cut through it.
Or diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth works. Yeah, so that's good. Y'all have any problems with pests on your tomatoes? Or do you grow tomatoes?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I have like,
yes.
I grow
yeah.
Outside of squirrels,
20,
you have
25.
problems.
hornworms and we pick them
Yeah.
off.
I just share with
Throw 'em
the
to the birds.
squirrels. I just figure, you know, some things you just got to decide to let go in life. You know, I figure I'll let the squirrels have some, I get some, we're all happy.
And we're all happy.
I can recommend something for that, a Jack Russell Terrier.
Oh, well, I have 2 dogs that they like to get out there, but I think that they get confused by the squirrels.
All right, well, there you have it. Now, here's our last question, okay? I have noticed a lot of browning on my Leyland cypress. What is causing that? Oh, she's shaking her head.
know, you
Miss
know,
Carol is shaking her head.
That's on my do not plant list.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's the problem.
The Ceridium canker
Yes.
is the usual culprit. There's a couple other fungal canker diseases, but that's usually what it is. One of those trees that was overplanted,
Yeah.
often planted in a row, so the disease can just hop along. So it is, but it has. Usually, you'll see a whole limb brown out,
Yeah.
and by that time, the vascular system of the tree is infected, and the whole tree is going to die. You can try to remove that tree as quickly as possible, maybe to keep it from spreading. well irrigated
Yeah.
trees are less likely to get it if they're healthy. But yeah, the lelands are just one of those trees that we're not going to consider long term anymore. Occasionally you'll see some that do, that
Yeah.
make liars out of me. But I just,
That usually happens.
yeah, I try to get people, if they're going to use them, do a mixed planting, a diverse mixed planting of a screen is always best.
All right, there you have it. Ladies, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.